and you probably already heard about the poor guest communication, you probably heard about misleading listing, and you probably also know about the importance of cleaning, right? Those are not the common mistakes anymore that service accommodation or Airbnb operators actually make. There's more detailed things that's actually losing you money right now. So look, in this video, I'm going to talk to you about common mistakes that Airbnb operators and service accommodation operators make. And guys, look, if you're new to this channel, my name is Piers BK, founder of GrowYourBnb.com. We've been doing this for the last 6 years, and probably in my channel, there's hundreds and hundreds of videos about the industry. And in today's video, I want to give you much more detailed common mistakes that a lot of operators make. So look, without further ado, let's get into the video. So number one, people ignoring the rules and regulations and actual local regulations of where or if you're allowed to do Airbnb or short-term rental in that property. So I'm gonna give London as an example. London has 90 days rule, right? And obviously there are little strategies to overcome that 90 days rule, but in a nutshell, there is pretty much a saying to say you are allowed to let your property out as a short-term rental for 90 days out of 365 days. Now, that is a serious regulation put in by the Borough Council in London to make sure that people are not overletting their properties over the 90 days. Now, if you go into your Airbnb account right now and just go and search in London, there are thousands of properties live right now in the city, in the borough of London. Now, that is what I call overlooking the regulation, ignoring the regulation. And really the concerning part for me is, yes, I am overly speaking about this, but also it concerns me that many operators are risking their investment, especially if you're doing a rent-to-rent unit in London. You're risking the regulation, right? You're not fully compliant because you might not have the right regulation or license to do it. And secondly, you're risking your investment, because if they shut it down in the first 2 months, you are there with a liability of a rent, essentially, depending on how you've done the deal. You are also liable of all the furniture investment you've done. So something that I'm really concerned right now, especially with the newcomers in the industry, wherever you're investing, make sure you're Googling. Remember, it's not just London, different places around the world. Airbnb is banned, well, nearly banned in Barcelona. I've done a recent video about it, and that's something that's going to hopefully, or maybe come in the UK at some point. And how do you make sure you mitigate the risk of your investment? So guys, make sure that you are fully compliant when investing in your short-term rental properties. The second one is a lot of operators are neglecting the guest experience design. Now, what I mean by that is if you go into the Airbnbs, there is an option where it says guest book, right? And which is effectively for you to make sure that you're doing the right thing for the guest. You're obviously offering the right information to the guest. Now, I'm gonna get my team to send a screenshot here, but the idea behind the guest book is to make sure that you're communicating the standards, you include the local recommendation, you're personalizing the space, and you're literally telling them about a story about your property and how you've created this property, why you've created this opportunity. And eventually, look, when someone comes to your home or to your investment, they want to feel welcomed. They want to feel like they know about the property, right? There's a lot of Airbnbs which has got a great story, and you can see that from the picture just because their design's amazing. But what effectively you want to do if you've just got a 2-bed apartment is, if you don't have a nice guidebook, which again, like I said, if you go online, you will not see, it will just be another rental property online. It will just be, and by the way, creating a guidebook in Canva is the most easiest thing you can do one evening. Talk about you as a personal host, your story behind why you've started. You know, maybe you've traveled all around the world, maybe you've stayed in Airbnb, one day you've came across something and you want to tell a story, or the location you've been to, maybe that's where you met your childhood love, or whatever that is. That's really going to make someone so excited to know, like, and trust you. So that's going to really help you with your reviews, right? Because that guest will potentially write on your review saying, oh my god, the guest book was so amazing, I got to know the owner of the property or the operator of the property, know their story, why they've designed it in a certain way, and really kind of tells a story story behind your property. So right now, guys, you've got to think about being very unique and tell a different story for your business. And the final one is poor pricing strategy. Now, I've kind of been loud about in the industry about profit pricing, net profit. I'm not too concerned about the nightly rates. I'm not too concerned about revenue you make, because it's important to understand the business runs on profit. Is it going to make you at the end of the year, where you go and sit down and do your cash flow for the 12 months, your profit and loss, and sit down and go, this has been all my expenses, these are all the variable costs, and at the end I've made an X amount of profit. And the poor pricing strategy for me is because there's two things. One, a lot of our online course gurus and mentorships, they talk about nightly rates. Now, what they forget to sometimes say to a mentee or a person who's learning is, look, they've got a fixed expenses on their property. So that fixed expenses is going to be always fixed, and then you've got your variable expenses, which is clean or your commission that you pay, also factors into what nightly rate you could potentially charge. Now, as the industry is growing, the rent is growing. What used to be a £1,000 rent is probably now £1,450 or £1,300 on rent. So effectively, somebody who says, I spoke to an operator and they charged £130 a night, their rent might be from 2 years ago, and they're on more sensible rent than, and maybe not as peak location, maybe not as high rent, not great looking property, but you need to factor in all of this. So what I found eventually was, what matters is profit. What actually matters is and this is the mindset that I've been trying to give with all my clients I work with. My second session around profit pricing, I'm stripping down all the numbers and go, this is what your expenses, and I said to them, oh, when did you last do this? He's never done this before. And that really opens my eyes to say, how do you then make sure that you're making profit? How do you make sure that the charges, and this is where we then come in and break down their pricing, show them what they need to do, understand profit, what profit they can make in certain months, and eventually deliver that through their branding and operations. So look, dynamic pricing, the smart pricing on Airbnb, I'm not a big fan of, because those pricing strategies are made for very tourist, high peak location where there are constantly different things happening. There's constantly demand going up, supply, being okay, or supply being down, and then your property is available, boom, you've got high, and there's pricing and revenue management tools that will allow you to do that. But in a hindsight, if you're in a market where you're looking to get longer term bookings, where you don't want to be hands-on into it, it's completely different. And it's important that you understand your pricing strategy fully, and go away from your poor pricing. So the guys, again, third strategy for me is understand your pricing very well. So by avoiding this kind of three things, Airbnb operators can stand out, also boost your profitability. At the end of the day, that's what's important, and sustain a business that you're going to enjoy and love. So guys, I have a lot of stories to tell over the last few years, that working with operators, different things, different investments they've made, good and bad. And eventually in this channel, the whole idea of what I did with GrowYourBnb is, what I love doing is my day-to-day, right? Sitting in Zoom calls with clients, working with my team and delivering this. But the reason why we do this video is I want to educate clients or potential viewers from different parts of the world to say, look, there is more to Airbnb business. There is a lot more detail that you can put in and enjoy the Airbnb business. So guys, I hope you enjoyed another Grow Your BnB video. Please make sure you hit that like, subscribe and share. And look, I'll be back with another video soon.